See if this will work. Perfect. Okay, so what is HIPAA? It's the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act, and it deals with protecting the privacy and security of protected health information and data, which we'll talk about what that is in just a second. It puts limits on how we can use and share client, member, patient information. Whatever we call it, whether it's a client, a member, or patient, it limits how we can use their personal protected health information, personal health information, what we can do with it. It limits who can access protected health information. We'll talk about that in just a second. And it defines violations and penalties for violations or failures to protect health data and information. We'll get into that as well as to what that looks like. But that is a general overview of HIPAA. Again, it is intended to make sure that the folks that we work with, our clients, our members, our patients, that we are protecting their health information and make sure we're abiding by the guidelines and laws of HIPAA. Okay, so what is protected health information? It's any health-related information that is maintained or transmitted in any form, whether it's paper or electronic, whether that's email, fax, letter, or verbal, that relates to the past, present, or future physical or mental health or condition of an individual, the provision of healthcare to an individual, or the past, present, or future payment for the provision of healthcare. And it must be individually identifiable. And that's an important piece. That's, of course, an important part to remember, is in order for it to be protected health information and relate back to HIPAA, it has to be related to someone's healthcare, whether it's the past, present, or future healthcare, whether it's physical or mental health. It can be related to the payments of healthcare services, such as what we do here. And it must be individually identifiable. We'll talk about what that looks like in just a second. But in order to be protected health information, it must meet those pieces, those criteria. Okay, so what is individually identifiable data? And this is not an exhaustive list, but this is, for the most part, what you're looking at to determine if something is HIPAA related. If this is stuff that we have to be careful in how we treat, how we organize, where we store, what we do with it. So, for example, if the information contains something about, payment for healthcare services, whatever that might be, whether it's health insurance, whether it's them going to see a primary care provider or a specialty care provider, and it has that person's name, full or last name and initial, if it has their birth date on it, if it has their phone number and doesn't have a name on it, if it has their email address, a social security number, even a certificate or license number, that is considered to be individually identifiable data and therefore protected health information, and therefore falls under the guise of HIPAA, and we have to make sure that we're treating that with kid gloves. We're being very careful with what we do with that information. Okay, so let's look at examples of PHI, protected health information. So faxing a patient's health history or medical record information to provider's office, which is what we do pretty continually on a continuous daily basis. That's what we do. That is PHI. Mailing a letter to a member detailing money owed for healthcare services rendered. That also would be PHI. Talking over the phone with a client about a proposed treatment plan or diagnosis. So this may be a surprise to some folks, but what you guys do in your daily jobs, and you're talking on the phone, whether you're here in the office or you're at home if we're working from home, or you're, say, in a business partner's office, say at a senior center. If you are conversing over the phone with somebody and you're talking about that person's name, a client's name, and any kind of health information, that also is PHI, and we have to be careful what we do with that. We have to be careful where we discuss that kind of stuff. Providing someone other than the individual with patient demographic data. That's PHI. So patient demographic data, it includes their name, where they live, their telephone number, and it relates back to some sort of healthcare service. That is also PHI. Emailing information to a member about an upcoming provider appointment. That is PHI. Texting information to a client about the need to obtain lab work. That also is PHI. Basically, any information that can lead to the identity of an individual or allow someone to make a reasonable assumption of the identity of an individual is protected health information. If it also includes then information about their healthcare, that's PHI. Okay, moving forward. So let's talk about what a HIPAA breach or violation is. And again, this is not an exhaustive list. And this is a general overview. And to really get an idea of exactly what a HIPAA breach is, this is going back to departments and having on-the-job ongoing training as to, again, what HIPAA is, what PHI is, how we protect personal health information, protected health information, and what exactly a breach entails. At some point in time, if you do have questions about a breach, if something pops up and you're like, I'm not quite sure if we made a mistake here, you can come to your department heads, your supervisors, or again, you can come to Clint or myself, again, who are the head based at the top of HIPAA for the entire organization. So again, you don't have to understand exactly what everything entails as a breach, but your job is to be aware of it. And if you have any doubts, any concerns about something, then you have to go and tell somebody. That's your job. Okay, so privacy breach is an unauthorized acquisition, access, use, or disclosure of PHI that is not permitted by AHN policies. An example of that would be sending a letter or email that contains PHI to the wrong person or entity. That's probably the most common version of a HIPAA breach that I've seen. It technically is a HIPAA breach. Is it a big deal? Yes and no. It's a big deal in that, in fact, that is HIPAA breach, that is violation, and we could get in trouble for that. But it's something that's easily rectified and corrected. And if we take the steps to correct it, as far as the feds go, not such a huge issue. What's an issue is if we send a letter or an email to someone that contains PHI, it goes to the wrong person, and you don't notify anybody of it. You don't tell your supervisor, and it never comes to Clint and I, and therefore we can't take steps to rectify it. That then would be a major issue. So again, when in doubt, if something happens, don't be afraid to speak up. You're not going to get in trouble. Is your job is to say, hey, you know what, I think there's a breach, so we can then take steps to rectify that issue and try to make sure that doesn't happen again. Other examples, accessing PHI that an employee is not authorized to access. That is a big no-no. Across the healthcare industry, that's one of the bigger issues that employees can face pretty stiff penalties for, is if you're accessing PHI that you're not authorized to access. And realistically, what that looks like is you should only be accessing PHI, whether it's inside our database systems or the database system you work with, whether it's patient files, client files. You should only access PHI that you need to do your job. Technically accessing any other PHI, say the information for a member that you're not working with, a client you're not working with, that is a HIPAA violation, and there are consequences to that. A really big no-no is to access PHI in say database system client files for someone that you know, say a family or a friend. That is a really, really big no-no. Losing documents that contain PHI. This isn't very common, but that is a HIPAA breach, and that's one of the biggest concerns. Let's say that you have paper PHI, which you really don't deal with too often outside the office, but you have some patient files, some client files, whatever it is, and you're transporting them, say, from an AHN office to an offsite location, and you lose those documents. That is a big issue. That's typically what I see in terms of HIPAA breaches. What gets healthcare organizations in the most trouble. For instance, there was a local healthcare system where someone had I'm going to say a briefcase. It's probably something different, full of patient files. They lost it. Someone else found it, and I think they got fined up in the millions of dollars for that one HIPAA breach. So that is a big something to be aware of. And we'll talk about how you can prevent a HIPAA breach in that fashion in just a second. Losing electronic equipment that contains PHI. So this is a USB drive, this is your computer, potentially even a cell phone has access to PHI. Providing PHI verbally to someone who is not authorized to receive the information, that would be a breach. A common example of that one that people don't really think too much about is not just, let's say that you're on the telephone, talking to a client, about PHI in some shape, way, or form, and someone else overhears that telephone call. That is something to be aware of, especially when you're working remotely, either at home or in, say, a business partner's office location. But also, let's say you go to the front desk and you're talking to a client and you are referencing their healthcare services, and there's other people inside that waiting room. That technically is a breach of HIPAA, because you are discussing that person's PHI in front of other folks who are not authorized to hear that information. So you have to be very aware and very careful, again, how you're discussing verbally PHI in the setting that you're in. Sending PHI to an organization that we do not have a business associate agreement with, and it is not part of the delivery of care for the person in question. What does that mean? It means that you should not be sending PHI to any kind of business organization that we are not in a partnership with. And if you have any questions about that, should I be sending PHI to this organization, to this agency? Can I do this? Your job, again, is to, when in doubt, stop, go to someone, your supervisor, department head, to Clint and myself, and then we can say, yep, you can do that, or nope, actually you can't, and we'll get what's called a business associate agreement, which we'll talk about in just a second. Okay, let's keep going. Let's talk about penalties. So they come in 4 different tiers of penalties for HIPAA breaches. And this is for the organization itself, to give you an idea of how important it is for us to take HIPAA seriously and protecting PHI seriously. Is tier 1. So violation that cover the covered entity, that's us, that's AHN, wasn't aware of and could not have realistically avoided had a reasonable amount of care been taken to abide by HIPAA. So there was a breach, and realistically, we could not have taken steps to avoid that breach in some shape or form. The minimum fine is $100 per violation, up to $50,000 per violation, up to $1.5 million per year. So pretty significant, hefty fines in situations where even we realistically could not avoid that. Does that happen very often? No, not really, but it can happen. Tier 2, a violation that the covered entity should have been aware of, but could not have avoided, even with a reasonable amount of care, but falling short of willful neglect of HIPAA rules. So we should have been aware of the potential for a breach. We should have taken steps to make sure that breach didn't occur, but really it wasn't willful neglect. We didn't know that this could happen and then said, you know what, we're not really going to worry about this thing. Again, a minimum fine of $1,000 per violation, up to $50,000, up to $1.5 million per year. Tier 3, a violation suffered as a direct result of willful neglect of HIPAA rules. Basically, it means that we knew that there was something wrong and we should have taken steps to do it. And we said, you know what, we're not even going to worry about it. In that case, a minimum fine of $10,000 per violation per breach, up to $50,000, up to $1.5 million per year. And the last, tier 4, a violation of HIPAA rules constituting willful neglect. We purposefully actually, said there's a breach here. We're going to do this anyways. That's a minimum fine of $50,000 per violation, up to $1.5 million per year. So why is it so important from an organizational standpoint, beyond just doing right by our clients, by our members who we serve, is because a HIPAA breach realistically has the chance to take this organization down. And I don't say that facetiously. If there was a major HIPAA breach and we were held accountable for willful neglect, or even not willful neglect, is that $1.5 million per year fine. That is more than our organization can absorb. So again, what does this mean? It comes down to you guys, when in doubt, protecting PHI. And if you don't know how to do that or what situation you're in, is to go to your supervisors, go to your department head, and then come to either Clint or I, so we can walk you through exactly what you're supposed to be doing. I don't want you to be scared of this, but I do want you to take it seriously though. Okay, keep going. HIPAA breach violation criminal penalties. So not only can you be fined dollars, but you can actually go to jail. So tier 1 is a reasonable cause or no knowledge of violation. So we didn't know that there was an issue. It was beyond our understanding. You still can go up to 1 year in jail. That would not be good. Obtaining PHI under false pretenses. So an example of this one would be, for instance, if you went into an example, I think that is more common in healthcare systems, hospitals. Let's say that you were to go into a hospital systems database system, and let's say, I don't know, a famous movie star was to be inside the hospital, and you had no business looking at the PHI in the record, but you did so anyways. Obtaining PHI under false pretenses could land you up to 5 years in jail. Does it happen very often? No, but it is a possibility. Obtaining PHI for personal gain or with malicious intent. Somehow, some way, you can sell PHI on the open market, for instance, to make money. That would be this instance, and that's up to 10 years in jail. Just to be aware of this, people. So what's your responsibility? Again, fairly simple in general, is you must respect confidential information about patients and members and use information only to perform your role at access to healthcare network. That's a biggie. Only access PHI that you're required to do your job. If you're accessing PHI that's not required to do your job, then that right there is a PHI violation and you should not be doing that. It is your responsibility to be sure member information is only given or disclosed to others who have legal right to it. There's a lot to that one. So again, if you're in doubt, if you're not sure you should be doing something, HIPAA, go to your supervisor, go to your department head, come to Clint, come to myself, and we can walk you through exactly what needs to happen. So let's talk about when authorization is not required. So for us to be able to release protected health information, generally speaking, is we have to obtain authorization for that. We'll talk about that in just a little bit, but let's start first with when authorization is not required. When we don't have to obtain consent from the member, the patient, the client themselves to be able to divulge, release their protected health information. So first is during normal course of business, is PHI can be disclosed to other covered entities and business associates during the normal course of business, including payment, treatment, and general healthcare operations. So that's going to be the majority of what you do. So for instance, as a care coordinator, If you're receiving information from a primary care provider about a certain client, a certain member, a certain patient, and then your job to facilitate, that referral, say for that client, is to send it off to a specialist, within a network. That is during the normal course of business. That's typically what you guys are going to engage in. But again, if you're unsure, is this a during normal course of business? Can I send this off to this provider or this business to this business partner? Again, ask your supervisor, ask your department head, or ask Clint or myself. But typically, for the most part, what you guys do already, that is the normal course of business. Law enforcement activities. So if we are ever to receive a warrant or a judicial subpoena, in those instances, we are able to then disclose that PHI without violating HIPAA. In those instances, your job is to never do that. Your job is to come directly to Clint or myself if anything from a legal standpoint ever comes your way, and we'll tell you what to do. The most common example you're going to see in that I've seen is sometimes we have law offices contact us to say, hey, I have some sort of civil legal proceeding, for one of your members, one of your clients. They got in a car accident, and we want to know about their medical history in relation to your programs. In those instances, your job is not to divulge information, but go directly to your supervisor, who then will come to Clint and I, and we can then walk everyone through exactly what we do in that situation. That's the most typical form of law enforcement activities that I've seen. Disclosing PHI to the patient client themselves. I think this seems probably pretty common sense, but if the patient, the member, the client is requesting their own protected health information, we don't have to have consent in that instance. Preventing a serious or imminent threat to health and safety of an individual or the public at large. Again, that's a big, broad topic. And in this area, if you think that fits the bill, your job again is to go to your supervisor, department head, Clint or myself. I keep on saying this over and over again, but I do so to protect you guys, to take the decision-making process off of you guys as to whether or not you should engage in divulging PHI in certain circumstances. Okay, providing PHI to public health departments for the purpose of public safety. I think a lot of that, for instance, with the pandemic, with COVID, is sharing COVID-related information with public health departments. That would be an example of providing PHI to public health departments. Reporting suspected abuse, neglect, or domestic violence, i.e. if a person is suspected to be a victim of abuse or neglect, the victim does not have to be notified of the reporting. This is a very sensitive area. Most of us, a lot of us here at AHN in our jobs are what's called mandatory reporters, that if we see, say, child abuse, if we suspect child abuse, if we see or suspect elder abuse, it is our job to report that to the proper authorities. But again, in those situations, I don't want you running off and doing that yourself. I want you to go to your supervisors, go to your department heads, come to Clint or I, and then we'll walk you through exactly what to do in that scenario to make sure that you are protected, the organization is protected, and that we can make sure that our clients and our members are also protected in those instances. But in those situations, again, it is not a breach of HIPAA to report instances of abuse or neglect. Okay, let's keep on going. So minimum necessary standard. What is this? Basically, it means that the minimum necessary standard requires covered entities to take reasonable steps to limit the use or disclosure of and request for protected health information to the minimum necessary to accomplish the intended purpose. That's a big mouthful. Basically, what it means is that you need to access as little PHI as possible, or divulge as little PHI as possible to be able to do your job, accomplish whatever task you have to accomplish. An example of that would be in our database systems, we have an awful lot of PHI about our clients, especially ones that have been here for say 5, 6, 7, 8 years. Typically, you're not going to send every bit of information about that person to say a provider to accomplish your job. You're going to send one little piece of that. That's what this means, is be aware when you're doing your job, when you're dealing with our clients, with providers, with partners, is don't send the whole kit and caboodle. Send only what is required, what is necessary to do that task, to accomplish that job. So release can be the entire medical record or claims record if justified. Typically, that's not what we do. But if that is required to do a job, then that is just fine. But typically, that's not the way it plays itself out. So minimum necessary does not apply to, say, treatment. When an individual authorizes release of his or her own PHI, we can give them the whole kit and caboodle if that's what they want. Authorizations for services, certain government activities, and federal complaint investigations. Do you have to understand what that means? No, you don't. If those situations arise, you go to your supervisor, your department head, Clint, or myself. All right. Providing PHI to clients and family. So before you can provide PHI to an individual who's not the patient or client themselves, you must verify that we have consent to be able to do so. And it is your responsibility to understand how your department's program captures consent information. So there is not, for valid reasons, there is not one standard way that we obtain consent to release PHI to individuals who are not the client, the member, the patient themselves. And that's okay. But your job as employees is to make sure that you understand how your department is to capture PHI and how you can verify that we do have consent inside the system, and then verify the identity of the person you're speaking with, talking to, sending PHI to make sure that we're not violating HIPAA. So verification of identity. So you know that we have consent, you can see who that consent is for. Say it's for, a husband of one of our clients. You can verify the husband of the client has access to PHI. You need to now verify their identity. We're only able to provide PHI to members or patients and their authorized representatives. In order to assure the PHI is being accessed by the member, patient, or authorized rep of the member, AHN staff must verify the identity of the person before providing them with PHI. How do we do that? So in person, if the PHI is to be provided in person, you can verify simply by asking for a photo identification, driver's license. Pretty simple, right? You have the consent form. You can see it's supposed to go to Clint. He's authorized to see my PHI, and you want to ask Clint's ID to verify that yes, you are indeed the person who can receive this PHI. That's very important. Telephone, which is what most of you do, is if PHI is provided over the telephone, verification will be accomplished by requesting identifying information such as a birth date, member client number, address, and confirming that this information matches what's in the participant's record. So again, if you're doing it by telephone, you obviously can't request a copy of a driver's license, but you can verify, say, Clint, what's your address, what's your telephone, and make sure that matches what's in our patient record. If you have questions about this, more detailed questions about how this works, what this looks like, so you can go back to your supervisors, your department heads, or come to Clint and I if you need to. Okay, providing PHI to clients and families, again, authorized personal representatives. So what is that? So an authorized personal representative is someone who has the legal authority to represent one of our members or our clients, say in this instance, in their healthcare, for their healthcare. And same as say a family member, we have to have consent from that person that yes, we can disclose information to that person. And you want to go ahead and verify that yes, this person is an authorized representative. Typically that can be done via legal documentation, a valid power of attorney, et cetera, et cetera. So if this is a authorized personal rep, you want to verify that yes, indeed, this person has legal authority to make decisions and access PHI on behalf of one of our clients or our members. Family members, so parents or guardians. A parent or guardian or the person acting in loco parentis. So loco parentis typically means that someone has the legal authority to act as a parent or a guardian for another individual. And they can access PHI for minors except in the following circumstances. So typically, for the most part, a parent, a guardian, or local parentis can access PHI without consent for a minor, except in some circumstances. So when a minor may lawfully obtain a healthcare service without the consent of a parent or guardian, when the parent or guardian has agreed to confidentiality with AHN with respect to the minor, or when there's suspicion of abuse and or neglect, or the person could be placed in danger if information is divulged. And that last one may be the one that we see the most often, I would imagine. It doesn't happen very often, thankfully, but if there are situations of suspected abuse and neglect, we talked about before, that's when we can withhold PHI from a guardian, a parent, or a local parentis. Spouses, this may be a surprise to some folks, but spouses are not granted access to PHI unless they have been granted express permission, consent by the client. This one is very important. So let's say that Clint, who's not married, let's pretend he is married. Let's say he's one of our clients and his wife, I don't know, what's your wife's name, Clint?
What was it last time? Jill?
Jill? Okay, we can go with Jill, a little generic, but we can go with Jill. So let's say that Jill comes to us and says, I wanted to know about Clint's appointment with the specialty care provider. Is you might think that because they're husband and wife, they're married, that you're allowed to provide that PHI to Jill, but that is not the case unless Clint has provided express permission, has granted consent for Jill to be able to access his PHI. That is very important. I'm sure that you could probably think of some circumstances, even with married partners, where folks don't really want their partner to understand exactly what's going on with their healthcare. That's between the person and the relationship, but it's not our part to play. Your job is to make sure that for anybody who is not the client themselves, an authorized representative, or someone who is a guardian or parent for a minor, that you cannot provide PHI to the person without express permission, without consent. Okay, so something a bit specific, participant location. This might be surprising as well, but we're not allowed to give out location of a client without their express permission. So for instance, if someone calls us up and says, hey, is Clint there at the office? Is our job, we cannot confirm nor deny, right? It's kind of like a spy movie. I can neither confirm nor deny, or like politicians, I guess, getting grilled by Congress. I can neither confirm nor deny that Clint is actually in this office. Right, in that instance, you're actually divulging the fact that potentially we actually know about Clint, what that looks like, but you can't say if Clint's in the office or not. The only way that you can divulge information is if you actually go to Clint and say, Clint, someone's called and they're asking if you're here. Can I tell that person if you're here? And if they say yes, Clint says yes, then you were able to divulge that. But if he says no, obviously we cannot do that. But without permission, you can't say if someone's actually in the building. Okay. Electronic communication of PHI. I think this is you, Clint.
All right, I'll take over. So electronic stuff is the way I look at PHI, or not PHI, but HIPAA is, if anything electronic is basically what I'm going to be taking care of. Anything in the physical world is what Trevor will be taking care of. I mean, we'll both be doing both of it, but we kind of specialize in either or. So faxing of PHI, each fax should be accompanied by an AHN cover sheet. The cover sheets should be default to your account. Wherever you're sitting, it should have either an Elko, a Reno, or a Las Vegas cover sheet. So it should have all your information in the cover sheet. If you see any issues with cover sheets, let me know. Faxing of highly confidential information is not recommended. If necessary, we must call the recipient ahead of time to confirm the recipient will be waiting at the fax machine. Again, if you fax someone's personal information to a provider's office, say, maybe not the best example, but say they have one fax machine that literally is a printer that just prints the fax out, and somebody goes up and grabs that fax and they were not intended for that information, that is technically a breach. So if you are going to be faxing highly confidential information, make sure that it's either going to a fax server like we have, that it'll route to the correct people, or that they are ready to receive that fax at their machine. Emailing with PHI. Do not include any PHI, such as patient identifiers and email subject lines. Yeah, that's, again, if somebody's, you email HIPAA information to somebody and they're in an office setting and somebody walks by behind them and sees that in the subject, which shows up when you're just looking at someone's Outlook, that could potentially be a breach. Use password protected email when required by the department or when emailing highly sensitive information, such as large aggregated PHI. That's just an extra step of security. So if you email somebody PHI, they will get an email that they got a secure email. It's not going to have any information into it, and then they have to log into it, so somebody can't easily access that information. When a password protected email is not possible, encrypt the document itself with a strong password and call the recipient, informing them of the document password before sending. You can password protect Adobe files and Word files, Excel files. If you need any help with that, of course, come and see us. We want to make absolutely sure we're protecting any information we're sending. So any extra steps we can take is always good.
And I want to pause there just so you're aware. So our email system in general, Outlook itself, is encrypted to the level that needs to be to not represent a HIPAA violation or a breach. But there are some departments, some programs that do require us to use password protected email systems. That is a department by department, program by program decision. And within your department, you'll be aware, I'm sure at this point in time, whether you have to use password protected emails, but in general, again, be aware that Outlook actually is HIPAA compliant as long as you follow the rules that Clint just went over.
Right. And then texting, do not text PHI without a signed consent form. I believe that is required with our texting product we have in Salesforce. Yes, and that's a very big one. That's we just started diving into texting PHI probably about a year and a half ago, two years ago, and that's probably one of the areas that we're most vulnerable for, most at risk for.
So I can't say this enough, and I'm hoping that your supervisors, your department heads are repeating this, very often as well, that you cannot text someone without a signed consent form. That's one of the easiest ways for us to get in trouble, to get fined. One of the easiest ways for you guys as employees to get in trouble. So when in doubt, is always double check to make sure there is a consent form that is signed and has not been rescinded by the client themselves before texting PHI. Next, good to go?
Good to
Okay,
go.
great.
PHI security, removing PHI. Before removing PHI from AHN for company business, you must receive prior approval from your department director, manager, and security officer. Again, I don't think that we really take too much PHI offsite. If it is ever being taken off, it should be properly secured. If there's any question about that, of course, come see, as we've said a million times, supervisor, director, Trevor, or I. AHN will allow only the paper participant records or reports removal of PHI when transported in a secure lockbox. Again, if you're taking physical papers, we want to make sure that it is physically secure. So if you lose it, somebody can't just easily get into it. Well, hopefully we're not losing it at all, but we want to secure it as best we possibly can. AHN will provide laptop computers for employees required to work off-site and access PHI in a non-AHN setting. Any files saved on these computers must be saved onto the shared drive. No files containing PHI are allowed to be saved on the desktops of the computer itself. Again, yes, everything needs to be saved on the shared drive, preferably worked on from the shared drive. If you're working on files right at that moment, it is acceptable to save it on your desktop temporarily if you're converting files or if you're working with that information right that second. When you are done, save it to the shared drive, the appropriate shared drive, most likely your department shared drive, and delete it from your desktop. Staff members with documents and forms created off-site that contains PHI must bring the PHI back to AHN in a locked carrying case. So again, taking or receiving or taking, we want to make sure that our PHI is very, very secured. These documents can also be saved on the AHN shared drive in a secure location or on a password-protected flash drive provided by IT. We really don't use flash drives for the most part, but if there is a need, please come and see me. The electronic removal of PHI using flash drives for the purpose of work related or for working from a non-AHN setting must be approved in advance by your department director, manager, and the security officer. I am the security officer. So start with your direct leadership if this becomes a need, and then it will escalate to me and we will make sure that it is set up properly. In the very rare circumstances that it becomes necessary, the PHI should be rigorously safeguarded physically as well as electronically, including encryption of all files. So again, that's why you're going to come to me. If this becomes a necessity, we will set up a thumb drive, a USB drive, whatever you want to call them, to be properly secured so that if it is lost, of course, they're very small devices that they are secured and cannot be accessed.
And so I want to pause here and to say again, all these policies, these are set up to protect not only the organization, but also yourself. In these kind of circumstances, please do take this seriously to make sure that if in some shape or form, if you're transferring a PHI, that you're doing so in a way that makes it so you are protected, that if something gets lost, that this potential breach is not going to come back on you guys. So if you need to transport physical PHI, you talk to your department heads and make sure that you have a lockbox. If you're going to go to a partner meeting and for some reason they're going to give you PHI to transport back to AHN, make sure you have the necessary materials and equipment to be able to transport that then back to AHN in some shape or form. And again, this is not only for the health of the organization, protect us, but to protect you guys as well. Good to go. Next one.
Next. PHI security, digital security. Computer screens, always lock your screen when you are away from it, from your desk. Again, I go over this in the onboardings. It's actually more than just HIPAA. You want to make sure that your computer is locked when you step away from it. Again, technically, the way HIPAA works, you are authorized to see what you are working on. If your coworker walks by your desk and you have Jane Doe's information up on your screen and they are not working on Jane Doe, therefore not authorized to see Jane Doe, that can be a breach. Again, secondarily, people don't need to be on your computer anyways, so make sure you're locking your computer when you step away from it. Storing PHI on desktops, laptops. Never store PHI on your desktop laptop. PHI should only be stored in the relevant database system or the relevant shared drive. Again, in the case of immediately working on a file, it is okay to have it on your desktop, but you will remove it immediately when you are done working with it. Non-sanctioned devices, never access PHI on a non-AHN sanctioned device. If you have questions about that, come see me. But essentially, if you're not working on a device that we gave you here at the office, or we have authorized, say your cell phone, do not access PHI on it. I would say don't access any AHN information on it, period. Portable media, never store PHI on a portable media such as USB drive unless approved by the security officer. Again, we really avoid using USB devices as much as we can. If it becomes a necessity, please come and see us. Laptops, desktops, smartphones, and other devices that contain PHI must be encrypted and password protected. We set that up by default when we are getting devices out. Good there.
Okay.
PHI security login and passcodes. Passcodes for work-related system software must be a minimum of 8 characters. I believe it's set up that way. I don't think you can even set up a password with less than 8 characters. Passcodes should have a combination of upper and lowercase letters, numbers, and special characters. I'm sure you've all changed your password at some point and it's like, nope, that is not secure enough, and it makes you do it again. But we have that in place for a reason. Do not base passcodes off something personal information that can. Do not base passcodes off of something personal information that can be easily determined, such as birth date, phone number, addresses, family member names, social security numbers, etc. A good tip that I learned a couple of years ago, when creating a password, one of the best ways to be secure is to find 3 random objects. They say look around in your room and make sure they are completely unrelated, and use those 3. So say like card, speaker, mouse, just random words, and then throw a number in there and a special character, and your password will be very, very secure, but easy to remember because you just chose some random devices in your office. Passcodes should be something that you can easily remember. Like I just said, you want to be able to remember it easily. We don't have to reset your passwords constantly. That can get annoying. Use different passwords for different accounts in case one is compromised. I would pass that information on to your personal lives as well. Try to avoid using the exact same password for all your systems. That's never a good idea. If somebody gets your password, then they've gotten into a lot of your systems if you're using the same password. Never write down your passcode and or login name or place it anywhere around your workspace. Having a secure system does us no good if your password is under your keyboard and somebody can sit down and get right into your account. That is not bueno. Never store a work-related passcode and or login on your computer in a manner that itself not password protected, such as an unprotected Excel or Word document. We do have ways of securing passwords digitally on your computer. Come see me if you would like to explore those ways. I do it myself. It is very convenient for keeping a lot of accounts, which I have to deal with, but I'm sure a lot of you have a lot of accounts as well. So if you want to consult on that, come see me.
And to pause there, this one is important. So it was probably about like 3 or 4 months ago, I think, that there was actually someone who tried to gain access to our internal systems, try to bypass all of the safety precautions that Clinton has in place to make sure that people can't get access to our shared drive, our Outlook, our servers, that kind of stuff. But we had a discussion that if someone was ever actually able to get through all of the security measures we have in place, what would they be looking for? And potentially looking for passwords stored on people's computers. That's why we say, for example, some folks had their passwords to their computer or to different database systems stored in a Word document. We're saying, please don't do that. And if you need a way to be able to store those passcodes, those passwords in a way that protects you and protects us, please do go see Clint, but not like on a Word document or a sticky note on your desktop. That's leaves us too exposed to someone to be able to access our systems. Correct.
And then last but not least, never give your passcode and or login to anyone else, including coworkers in IT. That's beyond HIPAA. General security. That goes back to what Trevor just said. Nobody should ever ask for your password. If anybody is ever asking for it, come and see me. That is a big no-no. Do not ever give it out. And again, store them as securely as you possibly can if you have to store them.
Okay, let's talk about PHI security and malicious software. So in order to safeguard the confidentiality, oh, actually, my apologies, Clint, this is you. You do it.
In order to safeguard the confidentiality of PHI of those we serve, we must adhere to the following guidelines. Be careful when opening an email from an unknown sender. You can see at the top of the email if it was originated from outside. We put those warnings in place so that you can see that it is not something from internal. When in doubt, contact us before clicking any links, attachments, and or responding to the email. Be aware that hackers can make an email look like it came from someone you know. If suspicious, contact IT before clicking on any links or responding to the email. Again, email scams and phishing has become so well done nowadays. We got to be very careful with all the email we're getting. Be very cautious of suspicious emails that require information such as email ID, password, or other personal information claiming that you need to verify an account, or you are out of disk space or some other issue with your account. You may see something saying, hey, your email account has been locked. You need to go to this website and type this in to get in. That is, they're phishing. They're trying to get your information. You will not, anything that seems slightly weird like that, come and see us. Be very cautious if an email comes from AHN leadership with a request that seems out of the norm routine. Verify the request via phone in person before acting on the request. That is something we see as well very frequently. Trevor or Sherry will ask you to go buy $5,000 in gift cards for the staff. It is not actually them asking you to do that. Please reach out to them and confirm that that's what they want. One of the first things you should do is check the email that it's coming from. It will not be their actual email address. It'll be some random email address. And you will also see those warnings at the top of the email saying that it came from outside the organization. If Trevor or Sherry emails you, it will be their email address and it will not have those warnings. And
I can guarantee you that no one in leadership, myself, Sherry, Brian, your department heads, they won't be asking you to go get $5,000 gift cards from Sephora. That's not going to happen. So again, use your best judgment, and when in doubt, stop, pause, and go talk to someone to verify that this is an actual real request.
Yep.
Okay, good for the next one?
Yep. Cool. PHI security visitors. In order to safeguard the confidentiality of PHI to those we serve, we must adhere to the following guidelines. All visitors must check in at the front desk, obtain a badge, provide proper identification, and state the purpose for their visit. All individuals who are issued identification badges must keep them on their person when on the premises. Visitors must maintain on their person visitor ID badges issued by AHN when in restricted areas and must return the ID badges before leaving the premises. Front desk staff will keep a log of the visitor badges. All visitors must be escorted to and from their destination after checking in at the reception desk and must sign out when leaving. AHN staff are required and have a duty to watch for any unauthorized access to restricted areas and report such access to AHN leadership immediately. PHI security office access. Staff will be provided keys, key cards, and or passcodes based upon their role and their need to access AHN facilities. Individuals issued with facility keys, key cards, or passcodes may not share them with any other individual. Any exception must be approved by the privacy and security officer. May not permit access to individuals not authorized to enter the facility or interior rooms, may only use them to enter AHN's facility and interior rooms to perform legitimate job responsibilities for AHN, are required to immediately report when they are lost, stolen, or otherwise compromised to the privacy officer, security officer, and HR, again, Trevor, me, or Tiffany, are required to return them to AHN on the last day of employment or contracted work. Exterior doors with locks and rooms with locks that contain PHI must not be unlocked or propped open and then left unattended. So once you're done, if you're entering or exit, don't prop the door. Make sure you're securing any room that is secured for a reason. Other PHI security measures. Avoid conversations involving PHI in public or common areas such as hallways or elevators. Keep documents containing PHI in locked cabinets or locked rooms when not in use. During work hours, place written materials in secure areas that are not viewed or are not in view or easily accessed by unauthorized persons. Again, that is going to be like printers, your desk, if you're working on PHI paperwork. If you are not actively working on it, flip it over or put it in a drawer or put it in a folder so it's not visible, et cetera, et cetera. Do not leave materials containing PHI on desks or counters, in conference rooms, on fax machines, printers, or in public areas. If you see papers on a printer, there are designated folders near the printer to store that paperwork out of view. But of course, if you're printing PHI, immediately go and get it. Don't print and then wait to go get it. Share PHI only with applicable coworkers, departments. Again, if you're not authorized to see PHI, that's a breach. You are not to be looking at PHI. You're not to share it with somebody, et cetera, et cetera.
And an example of this is, sorry to pause right there, is, oftentimes our jobs can be very difficult, can be emotionally taxing and draining. We deal with folks who are sick and scared and hurt. It can be a very natural reaction for us to want to vent in some shape or form, share our day, which you can do, but you have to be very aware that, let's say that you're talking about a client that you're working with to someone who works in a different department, or even someone within your department, and they have no business knowing about that person's situation. That is a breach of PHI. So the whole water cooler talk, you're on lunch and that kind of stuff, is do not share PHI about your clients. That is technically a breach. All right, thanks, Clint.
Yep. And then last but not least, never share PHI on social media. Never, ever, ever, ever. There should never be a reason for that.
Okay. Let's see. So member rights. Let's talk about the rights of our clients, our members, our patients to their PHI. So a copy of an amendment of PHI record. So HIPAA allows for individuals to request copies of their own PHI and request to have that PHI amended. If they think there's something wrong with their PHI, we misreported information, that they're allowed to do so. But that PHI must be made using the request for records form, which you can find in the share drive. Again, if you don't know what that is, you need access to it, go to your supervisor, go to your department head, and they can tell you what that looks like. Accounting of use of PHI. So HIPAA allows for individuals to have an accounting, request an accounting of how we've used their PHI. I've actually never heard of this happening, but it does allow clients to come back and say, you have a bunch of my PHI, what have you been using it for? And this extensive disclosure is made in the past 6 years, other than the following. So care at treatment, payment or healthcare operations, to individuals about their own PHI, incident to and otherwise permitted use or disclosure of pursuant to an authorization. That's a lot of words. Basically, it's all your daily job, that kind of stuff. Is we don't have to provide the information to clients. I'm not sure why we wouldn't, but if it's a normal part of your daily duties, daily functions, that's not something we have to provide an accounting of unless the person requests it. Request for alternative communication. So individuals may request accommodations for how PHI is communicated to them as long as it is deemed reasonable. For example, if they want us to fax them PHI, email them PHI, what that looks like, as long as it's a secured medium, we can provide the PHI to them in that format, again, as long as it's reasonable. If they come back and they're like, you know what, I'd like you to send PHI to me via Morse code, not reasonable, therefore we won't do it, right? So just be aware of that piece. Right to revoke an authorization. I think this should be common sense, but if someone, one of our clients or members or patients provides consent, for instance, Clint provides consent for Jill to access his PHI, Clint and Jill have a fight for whatever reason, and he's like, you know what, I'm gonna revoke that authorization. That is his priority, his prerogative, he can do that. And it's our job then to make sure we report in the system that this person no longer has access to this client member's PHI. That's a big thing to be aware of. Complaints. Individuals have the right to submit a complaint regarding PHI usage, THN, or the Secretary of the Department of Health and Human Services. If someone wants to complain and say, hey, I think you used my PHI inappropriately, hey, I'm not happy with how you've used my PHI, that is their prerogative. We cannot limit them from doing so. If there's ever a complaint about PHI, about HIPAA, that comes from a client, a member, a provider, a business partner, whoever it is, first and foremost, your job is to go to your supervisor, your department head, and it'll trickle back up to Clint and I so we can figure out what are we supposed to do in this instance. But your job is never to say to someone, nope, I'm sorry, I'm not going to accept your complaint today. They have the right to do that. All right, let's move on. Request for PHI. You'll see on the right-hand side an example of the document that we use. If someone wants to request a copy of their PHI, this is the document that you would use, they would use to be able to submit this formalized request that we would then store in their patient, their member, their client file. So it needs to be, this request needs to be in writing on this form. They can submit this in writing or have the form completed by an AHN staff member. You can complete this for the person if you want to be very kind and helpful, which we always encourage. The form must be completed and include the particular PHI that's being requested. It needs to be specific. The form must be reviewed by department manager before processing the request, supervisor in some shape, way, or form, and the form must be placed in the members/patient file. So again, typically this is if someone's requesting, a large amount of PHI. It's not just about a referral that you're working on, or a payment for health insurance or little small things, daily job kind of stuff. That's not what we're talking about here. They want an actual accounting of their PHI inside of our system. So time to respond. This is per the feds, per HIPAA regulations, is we will respond to an individual request for access to PHI within 30 days after the receipt of the request for PHI. If we do not, technically we're in violation of that, so let's not have it happen. As soon as someone requests PHI, let's make sure to go and get that done ASAP, because there's no reason really not to. Reasons for denial. Some of this stuff doesn't relate back to us, but in general, PHI relates to psychotherapy notes. We can deny access to those notes by law if it's about behavioral or mental health treatment, which doesn't relate back to us at this moment in time. If the PHI will be used in the civil, criminal, or administrative action proceeding, we can deny that request. If a healthcare professional has decided that the release of PHI would endanger the life of the patient/member or another person, typically we're not going to have to deal with this because we realistically don't provide too much direct service, except for what we do with our diabetes classes, nutritional therapy, so on and so forth. Or the PHI represents someone else and a healthcare professional determines its release would harm that other person. We will only deny access to PHI with approval by myself, me. So if you have reason to believe that we should not divulge this PHI to somebody, you have to come and get permission myself and walk through it, figure out what's going on, and then see if legitimately we should say, no, you can't have access to this. Okay, moving on. HIPAA breach violation, what to do? In general, it's pretty simple. If you have any kind of doubt that something's wrong, that there might have been a breach, your job is to notify your supervisor as soon as the breach has been discovered or suspected. That's the biggest thing to remember. Don't wait. If you think there was a breach, don't be like, I'll do it after lunch, I'll do it tomorrow, I'm super busy. You need to stop what you're doing, go to your supervisor, notify them immediately, and then they will start walking the process as to what to do. If they're unavailable or you are concerned about the involvement of your supervisor in the incident, go directly to myself or Clint. Again, if your supervisor is not available and you think there was a breach, you can go to your department heads, you can come to Clint or myself. Or if you believe for some reason that your supervisor, department head, whatever, was involved in the breach, then you can go directly to myself or Clint. To even expand that out, for some reason, if you believe that I am behaving badly and I'm involved in a breach in some shape or form, you can actually skip me and go to our CEO or actually go to a board of directors, right? You have full authority to go where you think you need to go to report a HIPAA violation or a breach based upon if you believe something untoward is happening. Notify the privacy officer. So again, you go to supervisor, they're going to notify myself, and then we're going to walk through the process to figure out what the breach was. Was it a breach? How to rectify it? And then if we need to engage in further training for staff to make sure this doesn't happen again. Time frame. So incidents must be reported to either your supervisor or the privacy officer within 24 hours of discovery. So I've already mentioned, do it ASAP, drop what you're doing, don't wait till later, don't wait till tomorrow, don't wait till after lunch. But by policy, you have to do this within 24 hours. If you don't do the 24 hours of discovery, I'm going to come back to you and be like, don't do that again, please. So within 24 hours. And then we're going to complete the HIPAA incident report form. And that's on the shared drive. Your supervisor, department heads know where that is, know where it's stored. But again, any questions, you come to myself, come to Clint, we will walk you through that process. Okay, let's see. Yep. So HIPAA incident report form. Oh, there you go. So that's an example. That is on the shared drive. I'm not going to go through the whole thing as to what it looks like, but basically it'll walk you through who was involved, where was it, the location, what kind of PHI was involved. If you ever have to engage in this process, again, go to supervisors, to department heads, they'll walk you through it. Don't worry about reading through this and knowing exactly what you're supposed to do. Your job, again, is if you think there was a breach that happened, to notify somebody immediately, and then we will engage in this process and figure out what the next step is. Okay, Clint, this is you.
Intimidation or retaliation. As a foundation for a participatory privacy program, no employee may intimidate, threaten, coerce, discriminate against, or take other retaliatory action against individuals for exercising their rights, filing a complaint, participating in an investigation, or opposing any improper practice under HIPAA. No individual shall be required to waive his or her privacy rights under HIPAA as a condition of treatment, payment, enrollment, or eligibility. So you cannot intimidate or retaliate if somebody is putting a complaint in or something like that. Disciplinary action, HIPAA violations. Level 1, Your level ones are going to be kind of, hey, we're human and we screw up. Misdirected faxes, sent your emails to the wrong person, your mail went to the wrong person, failing to log off or close a secure computer with PHI display, leaving copy of PHI in non-secured area, failing to redact or de-identify patient information for operational business uses, and improper disposal of PHI. The minimum disciplinary, notify department director and privacy officer of all incidents. It's a verbal warning the first time, written warning a second time, and the third time is a write-up and possible termination, depending on the severity, I'm sure. Level 2, dictating or discussing PHI in a non-secure area, leaving detailed PHI on an answering machine, failure to secure data on mobile devices through encryption password. Level 2 is going to be kind of stuff you should know better not to do, and you've done it anyway. First offense is written warning. Second offense is action up to and including termination. Level 3, requesting another individual to inappropriately access patient information, releasing or using aggregate patient data, inappropriately sharing of ID password with another coworker, giving an individual access to your electronic signature, accessing or allowing access to PHI without having legitimate reason. This is going to be more into the you're doing something on purpose that you absolutely know you shouldn't be doing, and it's basically not going to be good for you. Written probation, warning, suspension, and or termination based on level of severity. Next. And then the final one is level 4, releasing or using data for personal gain, compiling a mailing list to be sold for personal gain, disclosure or abuse of PHI, tampering with unauthorized destruction of information, accessing patient information due to curiosity or concern, such as family member, friend, neighbor, coworker, famous or public person, or posting PHI to social media. This is the worst level. This is you are maliciously doing something with PHI, and that one is termination. There's no toleration for that. You probably will go to jail too, just so you know.
Okay, so again, to go back over it real quick, what Clint was talking about, just to reiterate this piece. So most of the stuff that we're going to experience is going to be here in one of these two areas, level 1, level 2. And I just want to make sure that, if there are issues, if there are incidences, say misdirected faxes, emails, and mails, that stuff happens. As Clint discussed, we are human, we do make mistakes. And the most important piece is to report those mistakes. If you don't report the mistake, it's going to get more serious for you guys. If you report the mistake, trust us, we're nice, we're friendly. Clint's a big, huge teddy bear. We're not going to come down on you and be like, really? You left a document on the printer, like we were fired. That's not going to happen. We're going to go back to you and say, hey, remember, you can't do that kind of stuff. Remind you of these things, right? It's a learning environment. So if you do make mistakes, it's expected. We just want you to learn how to prevent that from happening in the future. The biggest piece, again, is you have to report this stuff. Don't be afraid to report this stuff, because that's always just going to make it worse. Okay. Let's see.
This will mirror you.
I can do this one. That's fine. So business associate agreements. Really, do you have to know what this is? No, you don't. But really what it means is, so normal course of business, being able to share PHI with, say, providers, that's normal course of business. We don't have to have any kind of agreements to be able to do that kind of stuff. That's just called healthcare in general. And it's not a HIPAA violation to do that. And whenever we have to share PHI with an organization, an entity, a business partner, where it's not normal course of business, we obtain what's called a business associate agreement. Again, as far as you're concerned, what you have to know is if you're ever in doubt whether you should share PHI with one of our partners, your job is to go back to your supervisor, department head, and say, hey, can I do this? And then they will go through the process to figure out if that's normal course of business, or actually if we need to have a business associate agreement with that individual. And if we do, then we'll go through the process to get one, and you're good to go. Again, so don't worry too much about this. Your job is to say, when in doubt, go to your bosses, and they'll figure out what to do in that instance.